Greetings, art lovers, and welcome to our first sneak peek of work to be offered in the upcoming Rockport Art Association and Museum's 2021 annual art auction. Hello, my name is Judith Curtis, and I'd like to thank you for tuning in and joining me. This year is particularly special as the RAA&M are celebrating their centenary. They were founded 100 years ago by many of the artists featured in this auction, which highlights Cape Ann art. This makes Rockport one of the oldest art associations in the country, and it is my pleasure to show you a selection of work by many of the early members who set the bar high for following generations. Let's take a quick look at some of the paintings we'll be talking about today. We have Emil Grupi and Aldro Hibbard, both of whom came to Rockport in the early 20s, plus Antonio Serino, who set the wheels in motion for an annual art auction with a bequest of half his artwork after his death in 1983 and the stipulation it be sold for the benefit of the association and its members. We'll also be looking at Paul Strzyk and Don Stone, incomers during the 50s and 60s. First we have lot 178, Smith Cove by Emil Grupi. It's an oil on canvas, 18 by 20. This is a wonderful piece by Grupi. He had a wonderful sense of design and, as we can see, a rich sense of colour when he chose. This is what we call front light, where the sun is behind the artist's shoulder and his subject is lit up with a full golden glow that emphasises chroma. Emil always accentuates the light in his work, whether stressing colour like this or going for backlight, which bleaches out the colour and creates more of a silhouette effect. We'll see an example of that in a later preview. This piece, though, is signature Grupi, looking across Smith Cove toward Banner Hill. He's even turned the angle of the hill slightly to emphasise the boats at dock, which are his focal point. See how he leads your eye throughout the composition with a line of design, and then the bright light on the ship's prow brings you back to the foreground. He keeps his design big. He's not intent on achieving painting exactness. This is not a precise rendering of rigging or every little detail, but it is the feeling of a boat, an impression. As he would tell his students, when you're painting, don't think of it as a boat because then all is lost. Think of the shape and the effect of light on that shape and in the water, and then you can emulate a momentary light. Next we have Paul Strzyk, lot 75, Morgan's Corner, oil on canvas, 16 by 20. Paul came to Rockport via Brooklyn and the Art Students League in New York. He first became interested in art when his father took him as a child to see the local museum where he watched the copyists at work. Remembering back, he said, "I thought having a painting set like that with the smell of turpentine and all those shiny tubes was the greatest thing in the world." However, it was many years before he tried it for himself. In fact, it was after his service in World War II that Paul enrolled in art school and studied with Frank Vincent Dumond. What Dumond did, said Paul, was not teach you painting, but he oriented your mind to think like a painter. With this great training under his belt, Paul moved to Rockport, Massachusetts to paint the weathered eastern coastline. He claimed that in the east, the sky is right over your head, and by comparison to the southwest, where he also loved to paint, the eastern sky is not very exciting. Well, I'm not sure where Morgan's Corner is, but looking at this painting, I'd love to visit there. Strzyk has created a feeling of nature, of atmosphere, that makes you want to jump right in there and walk around the bend to see what is round the corner. That is how the artist brings excitement to his work, by stimulating the viewer to want more, by filtering nature through the human personality. And just look at this wonderful painterly finish. Paul Strzyk was a past president of the Rockport Art Association and Museum and was always willing to help up-and-coming young artists get a good start to their own careers. And one of those young artists was none other than Don Stone, who progressed to international and award-winning status like his mentor. Don started out in illustrative art, but once he moved to Rockport and met Paul Strzyk, he gave up commercial work for fine art. It was Paul who introduced Don to the premise of painting plein air. The concept of painting a landscape on the spot had never occurred to Don, but once he tried it, he was hooked. Don visited Monhegan Island on a painting trip with Paul and loved the area so much he made it his summer home, where he painted and taught classes and workshops for the rest of his career. Don liked to soak up the influence of those who had gone through it before him. He was adept in watercolours, egg tempera and oils, and this painting here, lot 169, The Conversation, oil on canvas board 18 by 24, is reminiscent of both Paul Strzyk and Anthony Teamy. However, these picturesque street views were commonplace in early Rockport, and numerous artists set up to paint them. Don Stone, in creating this evocative piece, made the subject very much his own, with his use of warm tones and fluid impressionist brushwork. And here's another Paul Strzyk. This one, lot 53, Early Snow, is an oil on canvas 1624. This composition again demonstrates what a great designer Paul was. There is a sense of diagonal stacking, or looking into an oblique picture plane, so that we are not viewing the farm face on, but off to one side, which creates a keen sense of rhythmic vitality that keeps the viewer's eye moving around the painting. This work, much like Morgan's Corner, has what we call gestalt, or a unified whole. There is no detail or brushstroke that is superfluous. We can see figure ground in the way the tree on the right comes to the foreground, while the cluster of buildings, shown in proximity, create a middle ground, and then the cool note of the sky becomes the atmospheric distance. The bare trees on the left are scumbled in, but our brain creates the gestalt principle of closure, filling in the details even if they are not painted in. Again, a terrific work by Paul Strzyk. Next we have Two Small Oils by Antonio Serino. What a great colourist he is. There are few painters who can get away with such a bold palette without making it garish. This is lot 172, Time for Repairs. It's an oil on board 8 by 10. These small works by Serino, and there will be others in the auction on Saturday, May 1st at 2 o'clock, are much sought after by collectors, so don't hesitate when it comes to the bidding. This is an interesting composition with no sky, which creates an intimate scene and a line of design that moves the eye around but brings you back to the focal point masterly. And next, lot 177, Fisherman's Shack. It's a 10 by 12 oil on board by Antonio Serino. Again, the chroma is spectacular. And now that we've talked about it, can you find the line of design? What moves your eye from the foreground to the background and back again? Has Serino created an effective closure, the gestalt principle of the brain completing the object, even if the artist has not completed it? It's all well and good saying you like a painting, but it's exciting to extend your knowledge and know why you like it. And last but not least, A.T. Hibbard, Vibrant Seascape, lot 15. It's an oil on canvas board 18 by 26. Here we have a rare seascape by Hibbard. He was primarily a landscape painter, and in the summer he was usually teaching and playing baseball rather than painting for himself. However, this is a fitting example of a rarely considered genre for Hibbard. He's captured rhythm and movement in his design and his colour tones to emulate the shallow, foamy water, in contrast to the deeper key of the horizon and the clarity of the spindrift, which creates a feeling of ebb and flow, of the sea in motion, which is one of the hardest things to capture in a seascape. His rocky coastline grounds the painting, and he creates a big effect with limited details. Check out the colour notes in the foam. Well, our time is up for today, and so that's it for me. I hope you've enjoyed this and that you'll join me next week for part 2. Until then, happy painting and stay safe.